let's welcome in Drew DeArmond. Drew, before we get to football, I mean, Charles Barkley, Alabama, leads Alabama, right?
That's
what do you
right.
think? What do you think about that idea of him potentially being a broadcaster for Live Golf? I don't even know if you're a golf guy, but your thoughts.
I'm not the biggest golf guy, but Charles, I mean, no matter what he does, he's going to draw attention, and I think that'd be why Liv would want him, because he's never been afraid to voice an opinion. That's why he's been in the business so long. And again, the one thing I'll say about Charles is he's never met a stranger. I know people that have come in contact with him. I know when he was playing, he did some crazy things, but he loves people. He's a guy that loves the microphone. So if Liv's going to pay him a lot of money, nothing would surprise me.
So we got Nick Saban up first today, and I'm really excited to see what he has today. I wonder how many Jimbo questions he's going to field, but I think about this year. They beat Georgia in the SEC championship and then fell in the national championship. We've seen when Alabama has come up short, they've gone on a vengeance the next year. I think back to when they lost to Joe Burrow and LSU, followed up with Mac Jones, and that team was just phenomenal. How motivated is Will Anderson, Bryce Young, Nick Saban, and this team going to be this year?
Well, I mean, I think they're going to be really motivated. I've heard really good things about the offseason, but now, again, the things that is out of your control you have to have some luck too. You got to have injury luck. You got to stay healthy. They did stay healthy for the most part in 20 when they were able to go on one of their revenge tours when they had come up short in 18 and 19. But again, they're going to have to stay healthy. And I think one thing they did is they retooled the coaching staff. I think they have a better fit at O-line coach in Eric Wolford. I think Doug Marrone was a pro guy that maybe didn't relate to the players really well. Wolford is more of a college guy. He's only spent a couple years in the NFL. He's been a guy that has been a head coach at Youngstown State, so he knows how to run a program, but he's also been in the SEC a long time. He worked for Will Muschamp at South Carolina. He worked at Kentucky last year, and I think just based upon what I'm hearing from people that speak to players and things of that nature, I think the fit has been really good. And fit, just like head coaches with Sam Pittman in your state at Arkansas, assistant coaches have to fit as well, and I think Eric Wolford's a better fit. But again, they don't have a lot of depth at tackle. Tyler Steen, the Vanderbilt transfer, needs to stay healthy, no question about it. J.C. Latham is going to be transitioning from right guard out to right tackle. He was an All-American at IMG, a 5-star, but he wasn't quite ready to play tackle as a freshman. It was kind of a little bit like Javian Cohen. Javian had his first year starting at left guard last year. He basically played guard and tackle as a freshman, needed to gain weight. So it's going to be interesting. But the O-line, to me, is the biggest question because the two tackles have never played a game for Alabama as far as starting. And then you got a battle at center because I think Seth McLaughlin and Darian Dalcourt, who's going to be healthy now, are going to battle that out. And then defensively, the only question for me is corner. I think they've got the guys that have played at the end of last year, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Kyrie Jackson. Now they have the transfer, and Elijah Ricks. But, those guys have not played together. The safety room is really experienced. The corner room, not so much. So that, to me, the two questions for Alabama going in is the O-line and the cornerbacks. But I think they have the answers to the questions, but you still have to go out and perform.
Drew, with the transfer portal players come and go, and now there's ties, between a lot of programs. One of those ties is Drew Sanders, now at Arkansas from Alabama. Tell our audience what kind of player, in your opinion, from the Alabama perspective, that Arkansas has received at linebacker.
I think, the depth at Alabama in the linebacker room benefited Arkansas greatly because a lot of people have asked me, well, why didn't Drew Sanders get switched to the will spot where Jalen Moody's going to start this year next to Henry To'oTo'o? I think, Drew would have been open to that at Alabama, but I think what Drew was worried about is he was playing well, guys, last year when you saw the injury early, to Chris Allen. And then he got hurt his wrist, and the freakazoid Dallas Turner got on the field, and he couldn't get his job back. So I think he was a little worried. Moody was a senior, a Saban guy. That's why Saban asked him to come back out of the portal to stay in the program. You got a guy like Deontay Lawson who's chomping at the bit. So there was no guarantees in the deal. And I'm not saying that Drew doesn't want to compete. I'm just saying he's looking out for his career. And so I think when there was some doubt that he was going to be a for sure starter, he finished the year playing special teams. He decided to go into the portal portal. I thought it was huge for Sam Pittman to outmaneuver Texas and Texas A&M to get the young man. I know he had a really good spring game. He can play. The good part about Drew is he was playing the Sam spot at Alabama, but he can play inside. I know he's been playing inside in the scheme for Barry Odom. I think he's going to start there. I said this yesterday on Talking Ball, my show. I think he's going to be on the short list for Newcomer of the Year in the SEC. I think that Arkansas is really going to benefit from Alabama's depth, and I think Drew Sanders can play. There's no doubt in my mind that he's a pro. And he may not be the pass rusher that Dallas Turner is, but he's still, a really rangy, really good player. And the great thing about his situation at Arkansas is he's going to start next to Bumper Poole, who's an extremely experienced player who's going to be able to direct him a lot. And then the talent just takes over because, and I'm not disparaging Bumper because Bumper's a really good player, but I think Drew's more talented. And see, the thing about it is they're going to complement each other really well in that scheme. Barry Odom's a really good defensive coordinator. He may not be a head coach, but he can coach defense. And he and Sam Pittman, I kind of have some synergy there. And I think Drew Sanders, it's the reason I've got Arkansas in my top 3 in the SEC West. And what Sam Pittman has done in 2 short years, because I'm not trying to – I know your listeners probably agree with me here, though. I was in Bryant-Denny Stadium 2 years ago when Mac Jones had the first start of his career against Arkansas. That Arkansas team was as bad as some of the Vanderbilt teams that I watched growing up. They were so bad, but it just goes to show you if you have the right coach, which they do now in Sam Pittman, it don't take long with the transfer portal and the way recruiting is set up to turn the thing around. And despite Arkansas's brutal schedule, and they have the most brutal one I think in the SEC, them and Mississippi State, I still think Arkansas is a top 3 team in the West. I still think they got a shot at the second spot, but it's just when you start out with Cincinnati and you play South Carolina early, even though I'm not really sold on the Gamecocks, I still think Arkansas has got a chance to be special if they can keep their quarterback healthy, and Drew Sanders and some of these pieces that they brought in can hit the ground running.
You mentioned that second spot. I don't know how much of the TV coverage you guys watched being there, but I was watching quite a bit of it last night. There's a graphic that keeps popping up with ESPN's FPI numbers and the percentage chance of winning the West, and Alabama's at 87%. And the rest of the league's got just, a handful of percentage points, which I'm sure Saban will call that rat poison if asked about it today. But what does have to go right, Drew, for A&M, LSU, Arkansas, some other program to unseat Alabama as the Western Division champion? Because at least from the computer models, it doesn't seem very likely.
Well, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. It's one injury to the quarterback. I said this last year going in, that B.Y. Bryce had to stay healthy, and he did. He got him to the national championship game. Look, as talented as Jalen Milroe is, Ty Simpson, I think Ty Simpson is the future at the position. No disrespect to Milroe. They have never played. And if you have to insert a Jalen Milroe in offensively, it's going to be a totally different scheme. It's going to be a zone read-based system. It's going to be similar to what you saw when Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa were kind of rotating in 2017, because the passing game was limited with Jalen, but when Tua got in there, it just clicked, and you were a run-based scheme heavy with Jalen Hurts. That's what would happen, because Jalen had not progressed as a passer yet. So that's what would happen if there was an injury. So, again, Alabama can be derailed just like anyone else. You have to keep your quarterback healthy. That's why the offensive line, needs to be better. Because Bryce took some hits last year. He got sacked a lot, but I will say this about him. He's real slithery. He knows when to get out of bounds. He doesn't take the brunt of the punishment that he could, but you don't need to take any, because, again, every hit you take, it could be the one. So, again, Alabama has to stay healthy at the quarterback, just like Arkansas. KJ Jefferson is a veteran. He's a guy that's been through the fire now. If Arkansas is going to finish second in the West or even have a chance to win it, what if Alabama has an injury like that? You got to stay healthy at the quarterback spot. But that's everybody in the SEC to me. If you have an injury at the quarterback position, it can dramatically change your season. So Alabama, they got to keep Bryce Young healthy, no question about it.
Let's stay on the subject with quarterbacks as we're talking with Drew DeArmond, who's the host of Talking Ball on Huntsville, ESPN. Drew, KJ Jefferson is a guy that Arkansas fans really saw progress last year. He has, in some areas, decided that he's going to take it upon himself to prove people wrong. Tim Tebow listed his top 5 quarterbacks yesterday in the SEC. KJ was not on that list. KJ liked that the fact that he put that out there. Where would you put KJ amongst the quarterbacks in the SEC behind Bryce Young?
That's hard. I mean, I think I'd have to say, though, if you look at who all's coming back, I mean, you have to say he's in the top 5 or 6 because, again, I think there's uncertainty. Because, look, Richardson at Florida, he's talented. Some may say he has a chance to be better than KJ, but he hasn't proven it. When you're talking about a rating in the preseason, you're talking about dudes that played the year before. And so, to me, KJ's got a ton of experience. Arkansas had a really good football team last year. They've had 2 good years under Sam Pittman. You got to give him some equity for that. Certainly, Will Rogers at Mississippi State puts up a ton of stats. He's a good player, but he's not the runner that KJ is. I do think that KJ needs to progress as a passer, but I think he has. I think he's gotten better every year. And I think he's going to benefit too. The biggest thing Arkansas did from last year to this year is hold on to their coordinators. I mean, because to me, when you got Kendall Briles back and you've got Barry Odom, you have continuity. And so there's not going to be a lot of, okay, schematically, what are they going to do? That's the thing with Anthony Richardson. Like, we know Billy Napier, what they're doing is totally different than what Dan Mullen did. So, yeah, he looked good in the spring game. It's a spring game, man. It doesn't mean anything. That's why I get Alabama fans crack me up. I got people that still watch the A-Day game and message me and be like, our O-line stinks. There's no way we're going to be able to block for Bryce Young. And I'm like, well, first of all, all the starters weren't even there, and they do a lot of experimenting, and they're not going to show you anything in the A-Day game in a spring game. So I do think that KJ is a top 5 or 6 quarterback in the upper echelon of the SEC. I like Hendon Hooker as well at Tennessee, and plus he's in a passing system, so there's no doubt about that. I think he's a really good player. The funny thing is, like, Ole Miss is a wild card because you don't know. They lost Corral, so you haven't seen those two guys. A lot of times by the end of the season you can re-rank them, but in the if you're ranking quarterbacks in the preseason and you don't have KJ Jefferson in the top 5 or 6 in the league, I don't know that I agree with that. I think you have to because of his experience and because of how good a football team that I think Arkansas has a chance to have.
Drew, we'll let you go with this and appreciate you making some time for us this early in the morning. Alabama has to go to Texas, to Arkansas, to Knoxville, to LSU, and to Ole Miss. Which of those games do they drop this year?
I think they're going to go 12-0. I mean, I'm not just saying that because I'm on your airwaves, but somebody asked me this yesterday, and I ranked them. They asked me to rank the road games. I think the toughest road game for Alabama is going to be at Ole Miss simply because it's after the LSU game, which no matter who the coach is, it doesn't really matter because of Saban's history with LSU. That's always a very emotional and big game. Alabama's not flat. I mean, they didn't play well against LSU last year, but that's more of LSU always being up for Alabama. They're always going to be up for them. It's always going to be a war. That has been since Nick Saban came to Alabama in 2007. But the week after, you have to go to Oxford, and there's nothing that Lane Kiffin would like better than to beat his mentor, Nick Saban. But if you had to ask me the second toughest road game, I think it's Arkansas because Alabama has beaten Arkansas every year under Saban, but that's the week before you're going to have the Dirt Neck Bowl, which is my nickname for Jimbo Fisher, which everybody's looking toward because it's a huge home game for Alabama, but you have to be ready to play Arkansas, who Sam Pittman, look, they played Alabama tough last year. They lost by a touchdown, and that was in Tuscaloosa. And that really showed how far that team came, and they were physical against Alabama. Pittman's teams always will be just because of his mentality as a coach. So I think Alabama's 2 toughest road games because of where they come in the schedule are Ole Miss and then Arkansas. And I think that at the beginning of October, that road trip to Fayetteville is a little dangerous. Alabama's going to have to be ready to play. They need to be healthy. I don't think Texas is as difficult. I know it's going to be 11 a.m. and hot, and Sark knows Alabama, but I think Texas is soft, and I think Alabama will win that game by 3 touchdowns.
Drew, we'll leave it there. Appreciate you making some time for us, and we'll look forward to what Nick Saban has to say today.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for your patience and waiting on me this morning. I enjoyed being on with you. Hope we can do this again soon, and appreciate all the listeners in Arkansas.
Good stuff this morning.
Partners
Tommy.
at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's Wimbledon Finals, Major League Baseball, the latest fighting news, and even next season's early NFL futures. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BLEAV. That's BLEAV to get the bonus and get into the action. Bet online, where the game starts.